Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the lecture on extraction. I am Shoaib Mohammed, faculty member in Department of Pharmaceutics, Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Sindh. The material for this lecture has been taken and adapted from Tutorial Pharmacy by J.S. Cotter and Bentley's textbook of pharmaceutics. So this is the outline of the current lecture. Firstly, we will be having the introduction to the extraction. Then we will be discussing the different processes of extraction including the maceration, percolation, continuous extraction, and finally we will be concluding our lecture. So firstly, the introduction to extraction. The process of isolation of soluble material from an insoluble residue which may be liquid or solid. So in the process of extraction, we are taking out the soluble material from an insoluble residue. Now that residue may be liquid or solid, and from that liquid or solid, by the help of a solvent, we are taking out the soluble material. It is done by treatment with a solvent based on physical nature of crude drug to be extracted, that is liquid or solid. So if our crude drug is in liquid form, we can carry out the process of extraction with a solvent that is in liquid form or in gaseous form. If our crude drug is in solid form, we can carry out the process of extraction with a solvent which is in liquid form. So based on that, the extraction process may be liquid extraction, in which we are extracting out liquids from the liquids, or it may be solid liquid extraction, in which we are extracting out the soluble substances from a solid with the help of a liquid solvent. One of the important factors of the extraction process is the mass transfer. The mass transfer is movement of the matter from higher concentration to the lower concentration. And the process of mass transfer can be affected by agitation, temperature, and size reduction. If we increase the process of agitation, there will be more and more movement of the solid matter from the higher concentration toward the lower concentration. Similarly, by increasing the temperature, as we increase the temperature, the solid particles will, because of the kinetic energy provided by the heat, will move more from the region of the higher concentration to the region of the lower concentration. Similarly, the size reduction, more the smaller size of the particle, more will be the movement of the particles, and eventually the process of extraction will speed up. The extraction methods have been majorly divided into the three categories. Number one is the maceration, number two is percolation, and number three is continuous extraction. In the process of maceration, firstly we are placing the drug into a stoppered container. The slicing of the drug may be carried out, and we can place the drug into a stoppered container, or simply we might use a jar for placing the drug. Afterwards, 750 ml of the menstruum is placed, or here we can say the solvent, or the term over here will be used as the menstruum. So 750 ml of the menstruum will also be placed into the container. Now depending upon the drug, in which of the solvent it is soluble, now that solvent will be used as a menstruum, and 750 ml of that solvent will be placed into the container. Afterwards, this drug and menstruum mixture is allowed to stain for at least 3 to 7 days in warm conditions. During this placement for 3 to 7 days, the container is frequently shaken. After this time period of 3 to 7 days, the product that is present into the container is filtered and it is collected. The filtrate is then added more amount of the menstruum to make the volume up to 1000 ml. The picture on this slide shows the placement of a drug into a jar along with the solvent. Now, as earlier told, the solvent that is used for the extraction process, that may be water or alcohol or ether. In maceration process, the term used for the solvent is the menstruum. Now, after this process of the maceration, now when the drug has been extracted out by the solvent or the menstruum, and we are carrying out the filtration process, and afterwards there will be a inert fibrous mass which would be without the drug. It will be called as the mark. The process of maceration can be modified, and the extraction process of the same drug can be carried out again and again to maximize the removal of the active ingredients from the drug. The next method of extraction is percolation. In percolation, there is continuous flow of solvent through the bed of crude drug material to get the extract. We place the drug in a container. Now that container is called as a percolator, and from that percolator the solvent is continuously flowing and it is continuously extracting out the drug. The process of percolation has greater concentration of the drug as compared to the maceration process. Here is the stepwise breakdown of the percolation process. In the percolation process, firstly we powder the drug or make the drugs into small parts, and we wet it sufficiently with the menstruum. The drug is damped with the material or the menstruum for about 15 minutes, and then it is transferred to a percolator. As earlier told you, the container in which the process of percolation is carried out is called a percolation, and the diagram of the percolator was shown on the last slide. So the damped drug is transferred to a percolator. Afterwards, sufficient amount of the menstruum is added to saturated drug. Now in that container or in that percolator, we further add the menstruum to saturate whole of the drug with the menstruum. Afterwards, the lid of the container or the percolator is placed on the top to close the container, and the the opening or the tap downside the container is opened until the liquid is dipping out from the bottom side of the container. Now when the liquid start to dip out from the bottom side of the container or the percolator, we stop the tap. Afterwards, we allow the drug along with the menstruum to stand or macerate for about 24 hours, and afterwards we open the tap from the downside and percolate the drug. After whole of the menstruum has been collected or the extract has been collected, we add sufficient amount of the menstruum to make it up to 1000 ml. The percolation process can be modified to continuous or semi-continuous extraction devices called as the extraction batteries that are used in industries for handling of the batches of varying size. These equipments are operated continuously, and continuously they are providing the extract. Solvent extraction is the process of continuous extraction in which the same solvent can be circulated through the extractor for several times. This process involves extraction followed by evaporation of the solvent. The vapors of the solvent are taken to the condenser, and the condensed liquid is returned to the drug for continuous extraction. The large step extraction can also be done through similar mechanism. The picture and the diagram over here elaborates the solvent extraction. As you see at the bottom, that is the receiving flask, there is a heater which is heating the extract. Now by heating the extract, the vapors are carried out through a line and they are going into the condenser. The condenser converts those vapors again into the liquid form, and that liquid is again going through the drug and it is collected into the vessel. So by this way we are using same solvent again and again, and it is extracting out the active constituents from the crude drug. The circulatory extraction is also the type of continuous extraction. In this, similarly, the solvent or the menstruum is sprayed onto the drug, and the extract that is collected at the bottom side is again circulated through the pump onto the drug, and more uh, extraction of the drug is carried out from the crude drug. The efficiency of extraction in maceration process can be improved by arranging for the solvent to be continuously circulated through the drug as indicated in the figure. Solvent is pumped from the bottom of the vessel to the inlet where it is distributed through spray nozzles over the surface of drug. In the circulatory extraction process, the heat can also be used. As you see that from the top, the solvent is distributed through the nozzle. It is going through the drug, it is extracting out the active constituents, and it is coming at the bottom. Now at the bottom, there are heating coils which are heating the extract, and the solvent is then evaporating and the drug is collected at the bottom. The solvent vapors are then sent to the condenser. They are converted into the liquid form and they are again distributed through the nozzle into the drug. So we are using same solvent again and again, and also we are obtaining a concentrated product as well. The multi-stage extraction or extraction battery is an advanced process of maceration. In that we have an extractor and we have at least 3 receivers. We take a fresh drug and place the drug into the extractor. Then we take the menstruum and move the menstruum from the extractor and transfer it to receiver number 1. Afterwards, again we take a fresh menstruum, refill the extractor and transfer that extract to the receiver number 2. Again, we take a fresh menstruum, move it through the extractor and transfer it to the receiver number 3. Now the menstruum has been passed through the crude drug for 3 times. Now we empty the extractor and we place a fresh drug into the extractor. Now the solvent that is present in receiver number 1 is transferred to the extractor, and after passing through the extractor it is sent for evaporation, because now this menstruum has uh, dissolved sufficient amount of the active constituents. Now it is moved for the evaporation for further concentration. Afterwards, the solution that is present in receiver number 2 is transferred to the extractor, and from the extractor it is transferred to receiver number 1. Afterwards, the solvent that is present into the receiver number 3 is again transferred through the extractor and it is transferred to receiver number 2. Now the receiver number 3 is empty. Now we take a fresh solvent, pass through the drug and transfer it to receiver number 3. Now similarly 3 times the solvent has been passed to the drug, the extractor is recharged with a fresh drug, and the solvent or the solution that is present in receiver number 1 is transferred through the extractor and the process goes on. Next we have supercritical fluid extraction. It is a comparatively recent method of extraction of drugs, as certain drugs behave like free-flowing liquids or supercritical fluids at critical point of temperature and pressure. Such supercritical fluids have very high penetration power and extraction efficiency. The gases, like carbon dioxide, are held as supercritical fluid at a critical point of 73.83 bar pressure and 31.06 degree centigrade temperature. At this critical point, carbon dioxide behaves as a liquefied gas or free-flowing liquid and assist the process of extraction of the phytochemical constituents from the crude drugs. Supercritical fluid extraction has many applications, especially in the extraction and isolation of active constituents. The process is successfully used in the decaffeination of coffee, extraction of paraffins, and for the production of terpeneless oils. Depending upon the type of extraction process used, different types of extract preparations can be prepared. Number one are the decoctions. These are the extracted water-soluble and stable constituents from crude drugs. These can be obtained by boiling the drug in water for about 15 minutes. Next we have the infusions. Infusions involve the periodic maceration of drug with either cold or boiling water. Then we have the digestions. In digestions, moderate heating is preferred during the extraction process. The tinctures are alcoholic or hydroalcoholic solutions prepared from the crude drugs. The liquid extracts, these are also termed as fluid extracts. These are actually the liquid preparations of crude drugs which contain ethyl alcohol as a solvent and as well as a preservative. The soft extracts are actually the semi-solid preparations which are produced from semi-solid or liquids of syrupy consistency. The dry extracts, also known as the powdered extracts or dry powders, these are obtained by extraction, filtered, concentrated, preferably under vacuum and dried completely. Finally, we have the factors that affect the choice of extraction process. Now, there are certain properties of the drugs which should be made into the consideration and upon which the extraction process will depend. So, firstly, the characteristics of the drugs. So now if the drug is hard and tough in nature, the process of percolation is more preferred because the hard and tough drug will first go through the size reduction process and it will enhance the process of extraction. The soft and parenchymal drugs will go through the maceration process because the process of size reduction will be difficult and there are chances of the wastage of the active pharmaceutical, the active constituents. So the process of maceration is more preferred and even the solvent will easily penetrate through the drugs for more effective dissolution of the constituents. The unpowderable and unorganized drugs, the drugs which are in unorganized shape and because of certain reasons if these cannot be powdered, the maceration process is of course more preferred because for the percolation process we require size reduction. Avoid powdering, maybe because of the dusting, because of any hazardous problem. If we have to avoid the powdering of the drug, again we will go for the maceration. Next we have the therapeutic value of the drug. Now upon that also the process of extraction will depend upon the therapeutic value of the drug. Now for example, if the drug is of low therapeutic value, okay, we will go for the maceration. Even if we are extracting out less amount of the active constituent from the drug, no problem. But however, if we want to take out higher constituents from the drug, the therapeutic value of the drug is very high and we want to take out every bit of the drug from the plant, we will go for the percolation. Next we have the cost of the drug. Now, if the cost of the drug is low, we will go for maceration because in the maceration process we don't require any kind of the size reduction. Of course, the size reduction is a costly process. We will require more labor and it will be more time consuming. So if the drug of low cost, go for the maceration. But if it is of high cost and we want to extract most of the constituents of the plant, we will go for the percolation. We will go for size reduction and then for the percolation process and can obtain maximum of the active constituents from the drug. Then we have the concentration of the preparation. So if we want low concentration of the drug, we will go for the maceration. However, if we want high concentration of the drug, we want to extract out more and more drug from the plant, we will go for percolation. Finally, the stability. The stability of the drug should also be made into the consideration. If the drug is thermostable, we can go for this oxalate extraction, which involves the use of the heat. However, if the drug is not stable and cannot withstand heat, we cannot go for any of the processes or any of the extraction processes which use heat. So in the current lecture, we discuss about the process of extraction, that is the isolation of soluble material from insoluble residue. Then we discuss about the different methods of the extraction, which involve the maceration, percolation, and continuous extraction, which further involved the oxidate extraction, which was onto the small scale. And we also discussed some of the processes on the large scale that involved the heating, and we were using the same solvent again and again. Uh, then we discussed about the supercritical fluid extraction, in which we discussed about the use of the different gases that are used as supercritical fluids at a specific pressure and temperature. Like carbon dioxide can be used as a supercritical fluid, and it is very effective into the process of extraction. Then we discuss about the type of the extracts. Depending upon the process adopted, we can make the different types of the extract, like decoctions, the infusions, the digestions. And finally we discuss about the different factors of the drugs, or the properties of the drugs, or properties of the final products, that will influence the use of the extraction process, whether we have to use the process of the percolation, or whether we have to use the process of maceration, whether we are able to use the heat into the process of extraction or not. So this is all about extraction. Thank you very much for your time.